So this is a talk that I give fairly often. It's usually a little bit longer, so we're going to cut some few things out here. I originally like to call this talk Pro-Life 101. It seems such a gentle and inviting title that you would all love, but the reality is this talk should be called Abortion 101. Everything you need to know about abortion, the ugly truth about abortion, so that you can put an end to it. I guess the first question is, why am I the guy talking to you today? So usually when I'm introduced, they say I'm qualified to talk about abortion because, well, I'm a physician, so I've studied science and embryology, and I happen to be a lawyer, so I know the Constitution and the law a bit. I have 5 kids, so I know at least a little bit about babies. I'm married 30 years to a very strong, very Catholic, very Cuban woman who happens to also be a physician, so I know the challenges that women face. Balancing career and family, it's a real challenge. And all those things are really helpful when discussing the issues about abortion, but really none of them are my real credential. I think the real reason I'm brought to speak to people like you is because I spent the first 30 years of my life or so as a secular, pro-choice liberal. So I know exactly what, why, and how the other side thinks about abortion. And having lived in both the pro-choice and now the pro-life worlds, I have a fairly unique vantage point from which to address these issues. I like to say that when I was pro-choice, I learned the arguments. But when I became pro-life, I learned the truth. And this presentation is that truth. So when I was pro-choice, was I a bad guy? No, I wasn't bad. And we have to get in the habit of thinking this way. I was wrong. It's okay to be wrong. In fact, my wife will tell you I'm wrong all the time. Probably every day I'm wrong. And it's okay to say to somebody, you know, I think you're wrong. But we don't tell people they're bad. And because the problem is there's a lot of confusion. So we're going to today talk about facts, science, and the truth to help unconfuse our friends and our families and the people that are around us. The objectives of this talk, here they are: the science and the law and the procedures, the morality, your job. Because of time, I'm going to get rid of most of the law, and I mostly get rid of the law because my wife, who usually accompanies me here, she's much brighter. A lot of you probably know her. She's fairly well known. She sits in the back of the room when I do the law. She says, boring, it's so boring. And she does this to me, cut the law out, cut the law out. So she's not here, so I get to do the law. So a little bit of the law, and we'll talk briefly about the procedures because we have to know the ugly truth. So the first question is, why are we giving this talk at all? And there's 62 million reasons why, and you're all familiar with that, right? 62 million abortions in the United States alone since Roe v. Wade. That's more than the populations of California and New York combined. So if what's being aborted isn't alive, it's not human, I guess it really doesn't matter, right? But if these are living children, then we've killed 62 million of our own children. That's why we talk about it. So the law, my wife isn't here, so I get to talk a little bit about it. So my wife obviously inserts slides. We have a disagreement. We get to do this to each of us, so I got it. You can tell her that I'm going to be limited, please. Okay, I got it. She's very clever. This may not be the last of her slides. So I've always talked about these 3 Supreme Court cases, but I don't do that anymore because life has gone on, as you know. So I'm just going to mention Roe v. Wade, and it's important if we're defending or speaking for the unborn that we know just a little bit about Roe v. Wade. So what I'm going to tell you is 2 things. One, it was just bad law, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Know that. It was bad law. And more importantly, it was radical and outrageous. And I say that because it allowed unrestricted abortion at any time during pregnancy, not just during certain trimesters, because there was an exception. You could have an abortion at any time if a mother's health was at risk. Not if her life was at risk, but her health. And health was defined as including emotional well-being. So if you felt anxious at any time of your pregnancy, now my wife is more courageous than all of you combined, but she was anxious at times in her pregnancy, that would qualify her to have an abortion at any time. And that's what this led to, 62 million abortions. Then comes along, that's my big graphic, thank you very much, I'm digitally handicapped here, comes the Dobbs case in 2022 that said we hold that Roe must be overturned. Now, this is what I need you to pay attention to. If you're going to speak for the unborn, you need to know why the case was overturned, because the people on the other side, the pro-choice people, are going to tell you why. They're going to tell you why, and this is why. They said because a bunch of Catholic wackos on the Supreme Court imposed their extreme and crazy religious views upon the rest of the world. And if you don't have the proper rebuttal, you're going to look like a Catholic wacko. By the way, I'm a Catholic wacko. So the answer is no. It was overturned because abortion is not an implied fundamental right protected by the Constitution. That's the language you need to be able to explain to somebody, and they can sort of start getting it. It's not because you're a wacko. It's not because you're religious. It's because the Constitution doesn't protect that right. Now, for the sake of time, and because of my wife, I'm not going to go through my beautiful, elegant proof of why this case was overturned. By the way, the slides I wanted to give you, those were them. They were beautiful. I would have built this gorgeous case. You would have all been impressed. And then I would have said, and therefore, and then I would have concluded, Roe must be overturned. You would have all risen to your feet. You would have given me a standing ovation. It would have been lovely. And I would have looked like that. It would have been awesome. But now that my wife has pulled all these slides, I look like this. So that's where we are. So is abortion now legal? No, it's legal, yes. It's each state obviously has to make their own abortion laws. And about maybe a third of the states are going to limit or restrict abortion. About a third maybe are going to prohibit abortion until the baby's 5 years old or in kindergarten. And about a handful are unclear. Where are we in Florida? We're at 6 weeks. And you're going to hear later on, I'm not going to talk about it, but Amendment 4 coming up, which you're all going to vote against. If not, we maybe have abortion even at 40 weeks again. So we have to be very careful what's going on. I was going to talk a little bit about it, but I think you have another speaker that's going to talk about Amendment 4, which is a very important amendment. So that's done with the law. You could tell my wife I went very quickly through this. So now I'm going to talk about abortion in society. And about 30 years ago, Bill Clinton, speaking on behalf of the pro-choice movement, said abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. And what's interesting is he acknowledged the sadness and the seriousness that abortion entailed. But those days are long gone. Now, this is the mantra. It's anytime, for any reason, and for free. And you're supposed to shout your abortion now. You can go to abortion parties. You can pose like these women who are giddy with their abortion props. You can buy abortion dresses. This is actually real. It says machine wash in cold water. And you can put your kid in an I love abortion t-shirt. I thought for sure this was a fake ad. Right? But you can go to this website and buy this thing for your children. And this poor child is going to live with this repugnant image for the rest of his life. And a lot of people make the mistake here. Most of you may be a religious thing here in this basilica. But the reality is, this is a problem outside and inside the religious world. Here's 3 words that should never go together: Catholic, Mother's Day, and abortions. This is a problem outside and inside the Catholic world, the religious world in general. So how do we get here? And I'm speaking to the choir here, but I thought we should just go through this briefly because we just had a beautiful, elegant introduction about this culture of life. So this is what happened. We've had sex and marriage linked for 5,000 years. That suddenly in the sexual revolution 50 years ago is broken. And the metrics tell you immediately what happened, right? We see broken families and damaged children and sexually transmitted disease and violence and crime and incarceration and school dropout rates. We see exactly what the result was, right? But this is the issue. The issue is the pregnant woman. If you're married, that's what you get. And if you didn't plan it, my wife calls those hiccups, So you get a little hiccup, and it's still, after 3 weeks of panic, you still get this happy family. But if you're not married, what do you get? We know what you get. You get 62 million of these. So this is the question. How do we get from safe, legal, and rare to shouting your abortion? And people have their theories, and I could give a whole talk on this because it's something that's important to me. But this is what it comes down to. We have a defective human anthropology about the self. So society today, modern secular society, loves to talk about the self. They say that we should be true to ourselves, we have to express ourselves, we have to have a lot of self-esteem, we have to, what's it called? Hold on. We have to take, hold on here. We gotta take a lot of selfies, because everybody needs to know what we had for lunch. This is my tuna fish sandwich. That's the self. But in our faith, Judeo-Christian faith, self is also very important, but in a radically different way, right? It's self-restraint, self-control, self-giving. We lose ourself in the service of others. And so this defective anthropology they have now says that anything that gets in the way of yourself must be crushed, and literally, even if that means crushing our own children. And that's where we are right now. And this is why we're in a culture that suddenly prefers pets to children. And this is what you get, where at the DNC you have trucks that are giving free abortions and free vasectomies, and the press and the media and the DNC are all excited about this. They think it's a wonderful idea. So that's where we are. And the reason is because we've lost sight of the truth. Originally, well, I'll put it this way. When the sexual revolution started, you had a lot of suddenly unwanted, unplanned pregnancies. And what did you do? You closed your eyes and your mouth and you said, I'm not pregnant, I'm not pregnant, I'm not pregnant. So that's a lot of work. But you can lose a generation or two later the sight of the truth entirely. And that's where we are right now. We're at a place now where we have, as John Paul II, St. John Paul says, we have entered the culture of death, where we're blind to the truth, where this is, this isn't a baby, right? It's not a baby, right? It's just, what is that? That's an MRI, right, of a 20-week-old baby? No, that's a clump of cells. We completely we're blind to the truth, and we're deaf to the truth, where that, right, your 5-year-old child knows what that is, right? Oh, it's a baby's heartbeat. No. Those are embryonic pulsations, we're told now, across all the media. Embryonic pulsations. We can't call it fetal heart rate. In my field as a radiologist, we're now being asked by the ACR, our guiding principles, to not use the fetal heart rate anymore. They don't like that term. And we dare not speak the truth, just like I just said. So we have rhetorical deception, products of a conception and embryonic tissue and reproductive health care. Dismembering a baby somehow is reproductive health care, where women that go into Planned Parenthood clinics are greeted this way: would you like us to restore your period? The rhetorical deception would be comical if it wasn't so horrendous in this context, right? Where abortionists in court testimony explain what they do for a living. They render women unpregnant. But we all know the truth, right? And it's right there before us in this high definition image. And I'll give you a hint if you can't say the word. It rhymes with maybe. It wears diapers. It uses a lot of wipes. It's a... Thank you. You're paying attention. I was worried you might be going to sleep. Perfect. All right. So it's a baby. So we're done with that part of the talk. We're going to do a little embryology, because this is, again, we're making a toolbox so that you can speak for the unborn. So I'm going to give you week 1 of embryology in 90 seconds. This is what you need to know. So we have an ovary, a fallopian tube, and a uterus. Walk into a bar, and I'm sorry, it's like a bad... I always think, sorry. So you have this ovary, releases an egg. It doesn't release it into the fallopian tube, which is fascinating. It actually releases it near the fallopian tube. And this is like proof of God for me. These little fimbriae reach out, they find it, grab it, and bring it in, which is really remarkable. Where it's fertilized on day 1. And at that moment, a genetically unique living human being is created, which we call a zygote. It begins dividing and traveling through the tube, becoming a morula, a blastocyst, and then it implants in the wall of the uterus at around the end of the first week, and we call this an embryo. Congratulations, take a bow. You now know more than 99% of the world about week 1 of embryology. It remains an embryo, is the term, through week 8. And then a fetus from week 9 to birth. I have an asterisk here because that's not the word we use. What is it really called? What is it? Right, and I can prove this to you. It's a baby, right? We know it's a baby because none of you have ever been invited to that. You don't get invited to the fetus shower, right? You go to the baby shower. It's only a fetus when you want to destroy it, right? So I'm going to have to abbreviate this part. So a few definitions are very important in your toolbox so that you can speak for the unborn. One is, what is alive and what's living? During the Dobbs Supreme Court trial, it's not televised, but you can listen to it. And Justice Sotomayor said, what's alive is a religious question. And I began screaming like a madman in my house. It's not a religious question. It's not a political question. It's not a philosophical question. It's not a question about your political interest, your personal introspection. It is a scientific question that science has fully answered. There's no controversy about this at all. Go to any biology book, any embryology book used the world over, and you'll find out that if you meet these criteria, you are alive. You don't need to memorize this list, but know the list exists. There's 7 or 8 criteria for things of being alive. By the way, most of these slides are online, so I could give you free if you want to have access to them. So if you meet these criteria, you are alive, and all of these criteria are met at conception. It's a beautiful study I wanted to give you, but we don't have time. So remember, one of the take-home lessons here, life begins at conception because that's a scientific question that science has fully answered. Not religion, not philosophy, not politics. A couple of developmental milestones to have in your toolbox. So at day 1, we have this genetically unique living human being, right? About week 5 or 6, we have a heartbeat, brain activity. A week later, baby's moving and sighing and sucking their thumb by around week 9, week 13. The body is sensitive to the touch, maybe not pain, because we approach this honestly. We're not going to propagandize and say, baby definitely feels pain here. We don't know that yet. Maybe between 15 and 18 weeks is what we're thinking now. Week 21, we have viability, the ability of the baby to live outside the uterus when supported by state-of-the-art medical care. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Here's a few baby pictures. If you go to speakingfortheunborn.org, it's a website that I have. You can download all the images I have here, or most of them, and the videos for free. I paid for the rights so that you all can have them. And have them on your phones, because In the appropriate setting with the appropriate people, you might say, hey, you know that clump of cells? Can I show you what this looks like? And people are deeply moved by these things, so have them on your phones. This is a baby week 10 in the amniotic sac. You can see the umbilical cord beautifully that connects the baby to mother. Week 11 to 12, the anatomic detail is stunning. I don't know if it's too light or can you see okay these images? Week 15 or 16, these are beautiful feet in the blood vessels. My wife, when she's pregnant, she says, I'm making feet for socks. And I didn't really understand what she meant. You know, feet for socks. Now I see she's making feet for socks, right? Week 16, you can't see it all that well with the light here. It's a beautiful newborn. I mean, it looks like a newborn at 16 weeks. Week 20, this very famous picture. I'm probably the only person in the world that paid for the rights. Everybody steals this picture. Looks like any newborn you've ever held. Now, this is baby Lila at week 21. Her mother could have aborted this baby. Baby was born prematurely. And I find it deeply moving. I get tearful when I explain this to you. But if you look, can you see the bracelets the baby's wearing? You see the bracelets? Those are her parents' wedding rings. That's how small this baby is. And this mother had the courage to try this. Sorry, I'm having vertigo today. So this baby, the mother had the courage to let this baby have a chance at living, and as a result, that's Lila, age 4. This is in San Antonio, Texas. So viability, that ability to live outside the uterus, is getting earlier and earlier. Week 20, here's twins. You see the little guy's kicking, bothering the older brother, who's getting really aggravated. He's going to tell him off. Look at him speaking right now. Leave me alone, relax, right? So these are what, clumps of cells? We know what that is, right? That's a baby. Here's a baby, or a clump of cells at week 24 who has a fascination with her toes. Look at this. It's just a baby. We know what this is, right? We don't have to talk about medical terms. This is just a baby. Everybody knows this is a baby. Don't let pro-choice people tell you otherwise. And have this on your phone. You can download this for free, please. So I have this video. It's slightly graphic, but it's not to horrify you. This is not to shock you all. I told you I was raised pro-choice, secular, liberal, and all my childhood friends still are. So when I was writing the book, I would send them chapters. They would say, stop sending me that stuff, I hate it, you know? And then one day my buddy said, okay, look, I get it. Maybe at 28 weeks, maybe at 30 weeks it's a baby, but at 8 weeks, Steve, you have to admit it's just a clump of cells. So this is a baby at 8 weeks. I told you the baby is is fertilized in the fallopian tube and then travels. But sometimes it gets stuck in the fallopian tube. We call that an ectopic pregnancy. It's a medical emergency. A mother can die from it, and the pregnancy may not be allowed to continue. This is a woman, intraoperative video, whose baby is still in the amniotic sac. It has to be removed or the mother's going to die. This I put here, not to horrify you. This is to show you what an 8-week-old baby looks like. And you're going to see the baby moving. Look at the hands and the fingers and the toes and the eyes and the ears. That's just, you can't look at this and not say that's a baby. Have this on your phone. Don't just stick it in people's face. It's a sensitive thing to do. In the right setting with the right person, maybe somebody wants to see this. You could say, you know, that clump of cells, let me show you what it is. This deeply moves people, and that's what we're trying to do here, right? So the real game changer isn't intraoperative videos, or it's not these amazing MRIs I was showing. It's just ultrasound. And in developed countries, you'll get 1 or 2 ultrasounds during your pregnancy. I mean, this is a high definition window into the uterus. You can see the face here beautifully, the limbs, and this guy's thumbs up. He's just glad you're on his side. Here we have a baby at only 12 weeks, who is exercising. You'll see her moving around, and after she's exhausted, she reaches down, and instead of a beer, she takes a nice thumb in the mouth. And again, this is just 12 weeks. These are just babies. And now we have these 3D ultrasounds, this high definition of the truth. And you can see even pre-birth and post-birth photos look just about the same, right? So we're talking about babies. A few more facts and definitions. What is abortion? It'd be nice for all of us that are pro-life to have this definition on hand, because the media and the pro-choice world tries to tell you otherwise. It's the intentional killing of an unborn child. That is the definition I use, and for very clear reasons. Killing is to cause the death. We've talked about that this is alive. And a child in every household dictionary is a born or unborn child. So that's true for Merriam-Webster, the Oxford English Dictionary, the Bible of these things. Planned Parenthood, on the other hand, will just tell you it's just a safe and legal procedure that ends a pregnancy. But we know better. It's the intentional killing of an unborn child. Have that at the tip of your tongue. And don't let anybody, please, the other take-home message in your toolbox, don't let anybody use that word that is reproductive health care. Dismembering a baby is not health care. We know what health care is: treating the broken bone, treating the diabetic, operating on somebody who needs surgery to live. And remember, it's a great fact to have, greater than 95% of all abortions are performed on healthy mothers with healthy babies. Healthy mothers and healthy babies. There's misinformation. Oh, these are fatal deformities. They're not. 95% more are not. The next thing this is a very difficult part to watch. If you're not comfortable, I ask you to close your eyes. I'm not going to show you videos of abortions. I'm not going to show you dead babies. I'm going to show you still frames of an animation made by Dr. Anthony Levatino, a former abortionist. These are deeply disturbing, just the still shots of animations, but you can't share the ugly truth about abortion with people who don't know what it is. Remember, they're blind to the truth, they're deaf to the truth, and they don't speak the truth, so they've lost the truth. Have these on your phone. Be very careful when you're going to show it to somebody, but say, may I show you? These horrified people who are pro-choice and said, they honestly say, I didn't know. I didn't know that's what an abortion is. So we're going to spend 3 minutes, 2 minutes. If you don't like it, please close your eyes. It's very difficult, even for me, and I do this all the time. So the first are chemical abortions, which are now the majority of abortions, up to 10 weeks of pregnancy. That's this baby. That's this baby. It's 2 drugs you take, RU486, which cuts off progesterone to the baby, and the baby dies. Then the second drug is taken, misoprostol, causes contractions, uterine bleeding, and you pass the baby. Again, just still pictures from animations. They're tough to watch. It's going to get worse. These are D&C abortions, which are into the early second trimester. This is that baby. That's a baby, for goodness sakes, right? And so a suction catheter, a vacuum catheter with 10 to 20 times the power of your normal household vacuum, is inserted into the uterus, and the baby is vacuumed apart. Again, difficult to watch. I do it very quickly so you know what reproductive health care is, right? Reproductive health care. This is dilatation and evacuations. These are second trimester abortions. That's that baby, for goodness sakes. That's the baby who's playing with her toes, that beautiful, cute little girl we just saw. So that suction catheter won't take out a baby that big. So a Sofer clamp is inserted into the uterus that grabs hold of a limb, and if you don't, even the image is difficult to watch. You can close your eyes, and I really respect you if you close your eyes. They pull that limb off. They completely dismember the baby, crushing the head, and then they have to reassemble the baby to make sure all the pieces exist so they don't leave something in. A woman gets a septic abortion and die, which I have seen in a hospital myself. Induction abortions. This is third trimester babies. That's that baby, for goodness sake. 1.3% of abortions are third trimester abortions. People say, don't talk about it. It's only 1.3%. That's 750,000 babies in the US alone since Roe. Babies that could have just been delivered instead. We saw a 21-week girl, right? So what they do is they inject digoxin into the head or chest and kill the baby. Then the mother carries her dead baby for 2 to 3 days and then delivers her dead son or daughter. If she makes it to the hospital, if not, she delivers the baby in a toilet and the doctor or the staff will come and get the baby. So we're done with this horribly ugly part, but we need to know what abortion is, because the youngsters out there that are all excited to be pro-choice, they don't know what it is. It's up to us to tell them the truth. So nobody can tell me that abortion is women's health care. I won't tolerate it. I won't tolerate it. Show them the video if they insist on that. I'm going to mention 5 quick facts about Planned Parenthood, because not just because they kill so many babies, but because they're the leading advocate for abortion in this country. Number one, they're the most prolific killer of unborn in this country. About 1/3 in this country alone each year. Abortion is the reason for their existence. They try to tell you it's reproductive health care, but their past president has told us otherwise. Their core mission is protecting and expanding access to abortion. Very important for the youth in this country today. They're very racially sensitive, which I think is a really good thing. My youngest sister is black, and I'm very sensitive to these racial issues. Let's talk about these things. It has proudly racist origins, which are devastating blacks and minorities today. It was founded by Margaret Sanger, who was a very proud racist and a very proud eugenicist. She did like what she called the indiscriminate breeding by minorities, who she called human weeds. Let's share that with the world. That's a Planned Parenthood. And her plan has worked remarkably well, as nearly 80% of abortion centers are located in minority neighborhoods. In fact, it's the #1 killer of black lives in America, and that's more than heart disease, gun violence, and cancer combined, right? So, fact number 4, Planned Parenthood sells aborted babies' body parts for profit. They call it reimbursement for tissue donation services. Undercover video has proven otherwise. One center in Houston makes $1 million a year selling body parts. And lastly, it's financed with our tax dollars. $500 million of your money is going to this barbaric organization. But so when somebody says to me, and I get this all the time, Planned Parenthood is a wonderful organization. I tell them it's the most prolific killer of unborn children, particularly the children of blacks and minorities, and they then sell their body parts for profit. That's Planned Parenthood. Now, some people say, but they also do wonderful things. They do wonderful things. They do some very important things. They do. They do sexually transmitted disease testing. They do pap smears. But I tell them I can't support the pap smear going on in room A while a baby is being dismembered in room B. It's that simple. And what about Catholic infusion? I'm going to spend only 30 seconds on this because I'm really preaching to the choir. And I want to say this politely. So I want to unconfuse, and this is to help you unconfuse people that are Catholic and tell you they're pro-choice. And I say it this way, and I know, judge not lest ye be judged, I know, but I'm going to say it this way and you can all get mad at me. You can tell me you're a vegetarian. All day long, you can scream it all you want. You're a vegetarian, but if you eat a hamburger for lunch every day, I'm just going to say that I'm not so sure. That's the way I say this. There is no compatibility between Catholicism and abortion at all. And the Catechism, our rule book, makes it so profoundly clear. And every pope and modern saint that we know has spoken about this, including whatever that means, our progressive pope, I don't even know what that means, but our progressive pope speaks fiercely and firmly on this, that abortion is hiring a hitman to murder your child. It can't be any clearer about this. So Catholicism and abortion are 100% incompatible. So the last part of this talk is where do we go from here? And what should you do? And again, we talked about seeing and hearing no evil and speaking no evil, hiding the truth. We have to, or more likely, the skeletons more often, we have to open the eyes of our friends and our families and our coworkers. We have to open our ears and speak the truth. We have to speak for the unborn, which is opening hearts. And people say to me, what does that mean, opening hearts? We use it all the time. It was used in the introduction here. I use it all the time. It means this. When I speak to somebody, the tone, the language, the setting that I use, my facial expressions are all to elicit this response. When I'm done, if they say, wow, Steve, you're so smart, I'm now pro-life, that's great, but that's usually not how it works, right? But what I want them to say is this, Steve, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way before. That's the sound of the heart opening to the truth. That's the door you're opening, and that's what's the exciting thing we try to do. So what's your strategy? Where do you focus your efforts? If you're an appellate court lawyer, you're going to go to court. That's great. If you're a legislator, you fight for the laws. That's great. If you're Ben Shapiro, you'll get a microphone and go into a giant stadium, people and fighting it out. That's great. But the rest of us, it's in the ordinary daily activities of our lives. That's where we do things, one person at a time. And that's where we change the rules. Our mothers-in-laws, our father-in-laws, our daughters, our aunts, our co-workers. That's what we do. That's where. How about how? It's always charitably. Even though we can get hot under the collar, it's always intelligently. It's always persuasively. Remembering we're winning hearts, not arguments. We're brief, we're clear, we're articulate. We remember that 25% of the women in this country have had an abortion, and they deserve what from us? Our compassion, period. We've all made terrible mistakes in our lives. Abortion hasn't happened to touch my own life by the grace of God. But I've made terrible mistakes in my life that I deeply regret. These women deserve our compassion and nothing else. And now I love being in a basilica, and I'm going to make this next statement. No religious arguments. None. If you're speaking with a Catholic who's pro-choice, go for it. We have beautiful arguments to make. But 99% of the people you're going to be arguing with are secular, progressive liberals. They don't understand our words, and they think we're brainwashed, moron, Jesus freaks. So if you've made 8 arguments based on the law, the science, social justice, the visible evidence, and ethics, and then you accidentally say the word God, or sin, or sanctity of life, or Bible, you'll see their face change immediately. And you can read their mind, and I've made this mistake, and they look at you, and this is what they're saying in their mind. They're going, oh, Steve, I see now. You're a freak. And everything I said just went out the window. So we have all these powerful arguments on the science and the law and the social justice. Let's stick to them. Making these religious arguments really is handing a club to your opponent to beat you over the head. That's been my experience. And people get upset about that, but I feel very strongly, and that's been my experience. What about what we speak? What are the words that we speak? 2 things. Know why you're pro-life and be able to articulate it, and know your rebuttals to these pro-choice arguments. They can be found in a book. I used to be embarrassed pushing a book that's pretty well known that I've written. I don't take a single penny for the book. It's a very successful book. I recommend you get it. If you go to Amazon and you like it, give it 5 stars. If you get on Amazon and you don't like it at all, give it 5 stars. And know why you're pro-life. My wife said, "Why are you pro-life?" And I said to her, "It's because it's wrong." She goes, "Of course it's wrong." I said, because it's bad. She said, "Steve, you got a lot of work to do." So I had a lot of work to do. Remember, figure out why and articulate why I'm pro-life. And so this is very persuasive. Our arguments are fantastic. And you might get one chance to make your case. It comes up frequently, you'll be surprised, when you least expect it, and you gotta be able to make that case when it counts. So this is mine. It's in my website. You can steal it, you can buy the book and get it. Have your own, modify it, whatever you want. So this is what I say. I say I'm pro-life because I'm pro-science, because there's overwhelming scientific consensus that life begins at conception. And I'm pro-life because social justice begins in the womb, because everyone is entitled to the most fundamental of rights, that being life itself. Because being a burden on someone is never justification for killing them. And I'm pro-life because I'm pro-woman, because abortion degrades women, treating their fertility as a defect and enabling men to use and abuse and then abandon women at their most vulnerable. Abortion never empowers women, but it does empower the men who wish to exploit them. And I'm pro-life because I'm against violence, because it's not just an immoral act, but it's an act of extreme violence against the most vulnerable. And I'm pro-life because of the visible evidence. Because ultrasound, and now we saw these MRI images, right? They clearly reveal to the world what's moving inside a woman's body, a living human baby. And lastly, I'm pro-life because of moral conscience. If abortion, we said, is the killing of an innocent child, then it's immoral and cowardly to remain silent. And then I always ask this question: why aren't you? And they always tell me the same thing. You're a misogynist. They can't articulate their views, but I've learned we can't articulate our views. So we need to study and articulate and be able to prepare ourselves. Have your little summary together. Use mine, modify mine, make your own, but be ready to go. They're powerful. So, and then have your pro-choice rebuttals. And what's exciting, I don't know if you're a Miami Dolphins fan. If a Miami Dolphins fan is very depressing all the time. Years and years, we're on the losing side of everything. But we're on the winning side here. It's a very exciting thing. We rely on facts, science, and truth. The other relies on cliches, my body, my choice, and deception, that clump of cells, right? Or ad hominem personal attacks. You're a misogynist, Steve. And this is my big animation, thank you very much. This is, our side wins. It's much more powerful on each of these things, and it excites this guy very much. The pro-choice arguments in this book, I organize them in a way that you can then organize your rebuttals. They're very easy. You don't have to memorize them. They're bullet points. I highly recommend you practice them. And let me tell you, those arguments, they irritate this guy. They tick him off. But they motivate all of us to fight back, which is what we do. So they're going to argue, and we reply. And our rebuttals are really impressive, and they're in the book if you want them. They're brief, they're concise, they're easy to memorize. And they're really, really effective. So when somebody says to you a fetus isn't alive, it's just a clump of cells, you have in the book one of 4 or 5 options. This one you've already seen, we've already talked about it, right? So here's your rebuttal. And you have your sources and citations if you want to prove your point or give them additional reading. And then you blow them a kiss. When somebody says a woman has the right to control her body, you can explain, here's the answer, there's 4 or 5 options to pick. You can explain that, or you might have downloaded to your phone that image. And you said, look, I do. I have 2 daughters and a wife. I have 5 kids, and I really want bodily autonomy and integrity and independence for those very strong women that are in my family. But the problem is there's also somebody else's body here. And then you could show them this and say, this is the problem. I don't say you're a baby killer. I say this is the problem. And then I always say it this way gently. I say, I don't feel comfortable tearing the leg off that baby. Do you? And I've not met a person who says, yes, I am. This is how you open people's hearts. Have this on your phones. So download these things. So finally, what do? We talked about the facts and the science and the truth. Get educated. Find the courage. My wife, I told you, has more courage than all of you. I don't. I sat here before we started, and I was nervous, right? I'm nervous. I don't get up. I'm not a warrior that goes out very comfortably. But I don't have the option, right? 62 million children can't speak. So I have to speak to you all. And you can find the courage. Maybe it's not in the group, but maybe you can talk to your daughter-in-law, right? Maybe you can talk to your coworker. And as Catholics, you pray about it ahead of time. You might make a sacrifice. That's what we do. And then you're called to action. And lastly, I always remind people as we end here that the pro-life movement must be interested in more than banning abortion. Right? We can't just go up to one, you can't get an abortion, you can't be getting an abortion, because abortion isn't a sign that women are free, it's a sign that they're desperate. So rush to the aid of pregnant women. And if you need one more little reminder why we're doing this, I play this video and it makes me laugh every time. I hope it plays. because whether inside or outside the uterus, we're just talking about babies, right? So thank you very much for your kind attention. If there's, thank you very much. That's very sweet, very sweet. If anybody has, if you have any questions, or if I said anything that you disagree with, because we're all kind people who we can have these discussions. If I offended anybody, or if you want to debate something with me, we can have a conversation. Let me know.
Yes, if anyone has any type of questions, we ask that you please come to the
Well, fine. Forward and back.
Again, other side. There's another mic as well. Oh, you just passed one. I'm sorry. There's one in the back and there's one in the front here. Yes, if you'd like to go to the mic.
I was going to take up on my phone a synonym for prolific, but it's what an oxymoron. He's a prolific killer. Is there another word that you can use instead of prolific?
For Planned Parenthood?
Yeah.
It's a great point. I have to remember to be charitable. It's such a fierce group that I do it. I would say they abort more children than any institution in the United States.
But you see the irony in using the word prolific?
I mean, in terms of that it's a fertility, having children?
Well, the actual meaning of the word itself, the etymology.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I would just say they perform more abortions than any institution in the United States. But it's a great point. There's I get a lot of feedback from people, and I make mistakes. And there's three editions of this book already so far, and it changes each time because people email me. You can email me if you have the book. It's my contact information, and the book gets hopefully better and better because of this. And I learn all the time. That's a great point. Thank you.
Good morning, doctor. Thank you so much. It was very informative. Before you were pro-life, you said that about 1.3% of women get abortions in the third trimester. Do you know why women wait so long? And can you share a few stories of women in the third trimester?
You'll hear in the media that late-term abortions are always because the life of the mother is in danger or it's a fatal fetal anomaly. And Chuck Todd and Meet the Press about 9 months ago said that. And that's a falsehood. And the Guttmacher Institute, which is an arm of Planned Parenthood, originally part of Planned Parenthood, their statistics show it's unclear, but by their own stats, the overwhelming majority of late-term abortions are of healthy babies and healthy mothers. There's a Colorado abortionist who was just interviewed, and I think the Washington Post, of all newspapers, ran an article I'm blocking on the columnist right now, who interviewed him, and he was very proud to say these are healthy babies of healthy mothers. And I have a video which I would never show to anybody. I watched it. It was so horrible. It was a third trimester abortion in Colorado. I'm not sure if it was the same doctor, who was talking about how proud, as he was washing the baby parts to make sure he had them all, of a third trimester abortion, he was saying how proud he was of this mother because she preferred to continue her college education and not let this pregnancy interfere with her education. It wasn't the baby, it wasn't the health, it was the convenience of the mother.
If you need a second, take a second.
Good morning, doctor. Thank you so much. Trying to phrase this properly. Amber Thurman is a name that many people know in this room, in this beautiful church. And I'm getting a lot of pushback with what I don't consider facts. And we're being accused of murdering Amber Thurman because of our push for Georgia's current law. Can you comment at all, or would you care to comment at all
Sure.
on real facts surrounding this case?
Sure, I know some of the facts. I'll speak in general because there's several cases that are out there right now. I'll give you a more general answer because I don't want to speak not knowing every detail of that case. So I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm also in the Florida Board of Medicine. So I know the law, the Florida law, and what we're getting are lies. And these are tragic cases, but these things are lies. So I just got a flyer yesterday in the mail, and it says that the current heartbeat law that we have, and I could go through it, but we're running out of time. The current Heartbeat Act has no exceptions for rape, incest, or life of the mother. It has exceptions for the life and health, for rape, for incest, and it specifically talks about where the act doesn't apply. For instance, ectopic pregnancy, miscarriage, premature rupture of membranes, trophoblastic disease. The governor wants to make clear that the priority of the life of the mother always always comes, we say the born is prioritized over the unborn. So the pro-choice movement during an election cycle has no problem, and I know we all do this on both sides of almost all issues. We distort the truth. So right now the pro-choice movement is trying to confuse both physicians and the public to thinking this is a danger. We need to have abortion. We need to have abortion because it's a danger to mothers. In these cases, there's a case, for instance, in Miami. I don't want to mention the name because I don't want to get involved in a legal dispute on this particular case. There's a Florida in my a physician in my town. A woman had premature rupture of membranes, and the baby needed to be delivered. That's the standard of care. It's a tragedy. The baby must be delivered, and the baby's going to die because the baby is not viable. The doctor delayed because we don't know why. There's a name for that. That's malpractice. I'm not being mean. We all make mistakes. The doctor committed malpractice. And about 10 days ago, the governor's office, or the Department of Health, put out a very fierce announcement to all physicians in the state of Florida. I received it. It made it very clear. We treat mothers, period. If you don't, you're committing malpractice and risk losing your license. So there are individual cases where it's a tragedy and there was malpractice committed. And there's no excuse for malpractice. We either made a mistake or we were ignorant of the law or we were sleepy that day. But doctors, we make mistakes. But the law is abundantly clear. And I know APLOG is our pro-life obstetrics and obstetricians and gynecologists. They practice this high-risk management of pregnancies all day long, every day, thousands of mothers. They have no problems treating mothers. And they have no problem delivering a baby that's not going to be viable. We prioritize the born over the unborn. And if you don't do it, you're committing malpractice. It's clear as day. So there's just lots of ignorance and there's lots of frank deception. It's really lies. I'm speaking on Monday on this issue, and I'm tired of getting flyers that are just filled with lies. And the lies are intentionally to frighten the audience and to frighten the doctors into being confused. So the doctors say, well, maybe this is a bad law. The law is very, very clear. This is the Heartbeat Act that we have, and I could go into it, but we don't have time, has specified. People say, if I have an ectopic pregnancy, I'm not going to be treated. The law says treatment for ectopic pregnancy specifically is exempted from this rule. So to say that is really deception is the kind word for that. Sure.
To your law degree.
Sure.
Why is it that Florida or anywhere else, in legislation, court system, reproductive health care is an approved terminology when it is not health care? We know this, the medical field knows this. How do they get around using reproductive health care in the Amendment 4 issue right now before us? That it goes through the court system?
Yeah. We have to choose our battles. And when one side has a majority, in this case, it's the conservatives or Republicans in this state at this time, there are certain things they can accomplish. We can't police every single phrase and terminology. So there's legitimate discussions of why they want to call it healthcare that you would lose in a court of law. So the answer is we have a very strong pro-life governor, and we can all have we're a big tent and we can all have disagreements about certain parts of our laws, but we have a very strong pro-life governor. Our laws are very strong pro-life. In fact, strategically, a lot of pro-life people think maybe they're too strong at this point, that we should have been more incremental. A lot of very good people, I happen to be one of them, maybe I'm bragging about myself, a lot of people get upset at me for saying this. I'm an incrementalist. Abraham Lincoln, in his first inaugural address about slavery, said, I have no intention of ending slavery, and if I did, I have no legal recourse to do so, because the country wasn't ready to end it. 4 years later, he had the ability to fight a war and win, a horrible, bloody war to win. You have to bring people along. We have to win hearts. So we can't win every battle. And the term reproductive health care is not a legal term, so you're not going to litigate a legal term. Right now, the governor is trying to stop deceptive ads and was just shot down by the federal courts. We respect freedom of speech. I'm a huge freedom of speech person, which has wonderful benefits and some terrible things that go along with it at times. So the remedy to free speech, the remedy to bad speech is not a lawsuit and beating them out every time. The remedy to bad speech is better speech. So Yeah, no, no. No, my wife is Cuban and peligrosa, and I'm yeah, dangerous. I stay away from her. So yeah, I can't get in trouble here. I don't know if I answered your question sufficiently.